What is up, everybody? Welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC 268. And yeah, this card is phenomenal. The main event is phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to talking it about with you guys in the chat, talking it with our Uncle Weezy. And speaking of Uncle Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to this card as much as I am?
Totally, man. I'm looking forward to just as much like the lead up to this main event. The shit talking of Colby Covington is next level. These guys really hate each other. I would imagine the press conference is going to be awesome. The face-offs, the weigh-ins, all the trash talk and interviews going up to this fight, and then these two, the best two welterweights in the world right now, are going to scrap it out for 5 rounds. And we're going to find out if Colby made any kind of improvements here to level up and take this belt from Kamaru Usman, because if he did not, and we still getting the same Kamaru Usman here, I think it's going to be and still, but I can't wait for everything that's not just the fight, but everything involved with the fight. It's going to be great.
Yep, can't disagree there. I mean, this is probably my most anticipated fight of the year. I mean, the first fight was great. I expect this one to be great as well. I cannot wait to break it down with you. Everybody in the chat, if you guys can please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. My full card breakdown and prediction video will be out on Monday morning. I have that recorded already. Just need to kind of, type everything out, fix everything up, and then get it out there to you guys there. Let's check out the chat here. We have JSJ23. First one in the chat saying best pay-per-view card of the year. And I was talking to Weezy about it. I feel like it potentially could be. We'll see what happens Saturday, though. Danny Doyle as well saying Lego. And we have Daz Files, my bad, saying a jaw-breaking joy. Yep, Colby did get his jaw broke. Let's see if it happens again. But I say we get into it, Weezy. As always, let us start with the tail of the tape. And we have, Kamaru Usman. He's 34 years old, 6 foot, with a 76-inch reach. Colby Covington, 33 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. In terms of the last few fights, we have Kamaru Usman 5-0 in his last 5 fights. A decision win over Tyron Woodley, a knockout win over Colby Covington, a decision win over Jorge Masvidal, a knockout win over Gilbert Burns, and a knockout win over Jorge Masvidal, him being the first one to ever knock out Jorge Masvidal in the UFC. Very impressive. As far as Colby Covington, he has 4-1. In his last 5 fights, a decision win over Damian Maia, a decision win over Rafael dos Anjos, a decision win over Robbie Lawler, a knockout loss to Kamaru Usman, and then a knockout win against Tyron Woodley. It's a great fight. Looking forward to it. Colby Covington going to be 1 year younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 4-inch reach disadvantage, which I think is really important to note. So, Uncle Weezy, let's get into those experience stats.
Yeah, for sure. So, Usman, 2 more fights than Covington and about 15 more minutes in the cage as a whole. And then we look at the average fight time, almost identical, both on either side of 13 minutes here. Colby's been doing this for almost a year longer than Kamaru. And then we look at the percentages of their career at the UFC level, almost identical. The UFC record, 14-0 for Kamaru, 11-2 for Colby. Kamaru, more time in the cage, and average fight time just about the same for both of them. Obviously, Kamaru Usman has been mostly decisions in the UFC, but man, we started to see the finishes start to come. 3 out of the last 4 fights, Kamaru's finished, and that's really, even with that happening, he's still only at a 52% finish rate in his career, and his finish rate in the UFC is only 36%. But Colby Covington's got a 45% finish rate in the UFC and a 50% finish rate overall. So, neither one of these guys in the past were guys that were finishing people with submissions or knockouts. Really, they were using their wrestling, they were using their pace. If they got finishes, it was a result of them breaking their opponents with the wrestling, with the pace, than it was really them being great strikers. But lately, after Kamaru Usman's been training at Sanford for quite a while now. His striking has really taken that next step. But and what's very interesting here is that in the 3 combined losses between these two guys, all of them have been inside the distance. So that's something interesting to talk about when we talk about time props here. And we do know that the first one did finish inside the distance, even though it if you talk to most people after the fourth round, they would have said, "Oh, this is definitely going to decision." But Kamaru landed the big shots and finished the fight. So, yeah, very, very close though in the experience numbers here, and very close in the finishing numbers.
Yep, for sure. I think if there is a finish in this fight, I do think it's going to 100% be on the Kamaru Usman side. I mean, we talked about it. Like, this guy's power. Like, I was not sold on his power. I kind of crapped on him for being a decisionator for most of his career. But I mean, he's proved me wrong. I mean, going out there knocking out Jorge Masvidal, that is not something that is easy to do. I mean, that was like the first time ever Masvidal's been knocked out, and then just how he looked against Gilbert Burns, like looked like he leveled up. I mean, he was knocking this guy down with a jab. Like his jab is dangerous and he's very dangerous in his own right. Obviously knocked out Colby himself in that fifth round. He's very impressive, especially the way his striking is coming along. Just very, very impressive to me. I mean, the grappling's always been there, the wrestling's always been there, but yeah, the striking just looks like very, very good as of late. The move to Sanford really paid dividends for Kamaru Usman here. So yeah, like I said, if it's a finish, I think it's Kamaru Usman. The guy hits very hard. Colby Covington has been knocked out before, like you mentioned. It's just hard seeing Colby Covington get a finish here. Like I don't see him submitting Kamaru Usman. Don't really see him taking down Kamaru Usman. We'll talk about the takedown stats. Don't see him knocking out Kamaru Usman, who has never been dropped in his career. We've seen him hurt, but this guy has a great chin, and Colby doesn't really have as much power as a Kamaru Usman. Really not even close, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think if there's a finish, it's on the Kamaru Usman side, if any at all. But, yeah, really curious to hear the striking stats in this one, Weezy, because we take a look at the first fight, and all we got was striking, which was surprising to a lot of people, including me, because you take a look at these guys in their career, and, what do? Well, they take guys down, and they're very successful at it. So seeing them attempt a combined 0 takedowns was very shocking to me. Was it the same for you?
I don't know if it was entirely surprising to me. These guys will use their wrestling when it's an advantage, but the thing that you see it over and over again when wrestlers fight, it winds up being a striking match. And that's because wrestlers, whether you're an Olympic wrestler, whether you're a college wrestler, your bouts are 8 minutes long, 9 minutes long, maybe. So the thing is, it's really hard to bring that conditioning over to mixed martial arts where it's a 15-minute fight and you're used to leaving, everything there on the mat. It's hard to translate that to mixed martial arts. So you'll see wrestlers wrestling everybody that doesn't have a wrestling background. But when they go up against somebody else that's been on the mat, that's been in the wrestling rooms, they prefer to strike because they realize that the offensive wrestling is so exhausting and will probably not even wind up being able to take down their opponent, that they'd rather strike and let their opponent try the offensive wrestling because it's easier on their conditioning to defend than it is to be offensive with wrestling. So it didn't entirely surprise me, but when you look at the stats, yeah, it surprises you when you find out that these guys didn't wrestle. But it's often what happens when two high-level wrestlers get in the cage.
Yeah, for sure. Don't disagree there. But this fight, though, do you think we see the same thing? Do you think we see a 25-minute fight where neither guy shoots a takedown? Or do you think there's a kind of a change of game plan on either side? And if so, who do you think is more likely to shoot?
Well, here, let's do this first. Let's talk about the striking numbers. And then after we go in depth into these striking numbers, we can talk about exactly the question that you just asked. So Kamaru Usman landing 4.63 significant strikes a minute, absorbing 2.4. So a positive 2.23 significant strike differential per minute there. Colby Covington lands 4.12, absorbs 2.86. That is about a 1.26 significant strike differential. Very good, but not nearly as good as Kamaru Usman's, right? And then we see Usman, 54% accurate. Colby Covington, 39% accurate. Kamaru Usman has 8 knockdowns in 1,041 significant strikes landed for 0.77% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, while Colby Covington has only 1 knockdown in 817 significant strikes landed. So offensively, Kamaru Usman has a better significant strike differential. He's more accurate and he's more powerful, but it's Colby Covington who throws more volume. And then we look defensively. Kamaru Usman absorbs less significant strikes per minute. He's got better striking defense, and he's never been knocked down, while Colby Covington has been knocked down twice, both of them by the same guy, both of them the guy that he's going to be fighting on Saturday. So we see that on paper, Usman's the more powerful striker. He's the more accurate striker. He's better defensively. And we can see it when we just look with our eyes as well, that he's just going to be the cleaner, more technical striker in there. So do we expect one of these guys to wrestle more this time? Wouldn't it have to be Colby?
That's what I'm thinking. If somebody's going to shoot, I think it's going to be Colby Covington.
Yeah, because that's what the numbers are telling us. And we can even look at it. Colby probably landed more strikes at the end of the fourth round, going into the fifth round. It was probably Colby who landed more. It was definitely Colby who threw more, so we saw that it was close, but it's still that power is what made the difference. And the power, we can see it right here on the paper. We can see it in the numbers in front of us. It was there before that fight as well, because Kamaru is starting to show that power now. He's been at Sanford for a long time. He's been training under Henry Hooft for a long time. And if we look at three of those look at all four of the last fights, he fought Masvidal twice, Gilbert Burns, and Colby Covington. Well, he knew that Colby Covington, he wasn't going to be able to take Colby down. And he knew that Colby wouldn't be able to take him down. So, of course, that wound up being a striking battle. And, of course, he doesn't want to go to the ground with Gilbert Burns. He's not doing that. There's no point in doing that. The guy's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. You can outstrike this guy, and he did. So I think we would see Kamaru Usman, like, let's say he was fighting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, right? We'd see Kamaru go back to that wrestling, right? Because he's not better striking than Thompson. But see, he is better striking. He is cleaner. He is more powerful. He is probably faster than Colby. So, he doesn't have to wrestle. If one of these guys needs to make a change, it's Colby. And it's going to be Colby that needs to mix in the wrestling in order to make his striking and the volume that he's throwing a little more eye-popping to the judges here.
Yeah, something that doesn't stick out in the numbers, and you bring up a lot of great points, like the fight IQ of both guys. Like, both of these guys are very, very smart. They know how to win a fight. They know how to fight, their best path to victory. So, again, like, maybe Colby does come in here and maybe he does try to wrestle, but I think it's going to be easier said than done. Kamaru Usman has shown a very, very impressive takedown defense, and we talk about it all the time. Although Colby Covington has some of the best cardio I ever see, it's going to be exhausting trying to take down and hold down a guy like Usman, right?
Absolutely. And it's a 5-round fight too. And we do know that Colby Covington is the cardio king. He has the cardio to push that kind of a pace. But the thing is, he can push that kind of a pace against somebody like Woodley, who's not as good of a wrestler as Kamaru Usman, who's not as good defensively with his wrestling as Kamaru Usman is. But, against Usman, boy, it seems like it might be a fool's errand for him to try to out-wrestle this guy because, he's got 100% takedown defense. Kamaru is just as well credentialed of a college wrestler as Colby was. I think some people would argue that, but come on, for mixed martial arts, these guys are top of the food chain wrestlers, especially for this division. So, you can argue about which one of them had the better college record, but really in the cage, it's not going to translate to much because both of these guys have such good takedown defense and such good conditioning that trying to wrestle offensively could just be a fool's errand. And I want to bring up one more thing that we talked about just before Stat Digger started, is that Colby Covington fought this first fight against Kamaru Usman from the southpaw stance. That's strange because he's an orthodox fighter. So why did Colby do that? One of the things that because we were saying, we don't want to be lazy and just assume that this fight is going to take place exactly the same way the first one did, because both of these guys are going to make adjustments, even if they're subtle striking adjustments that aren't really evident to the average fan's eyes. These guys are going to be doing different things. They're going to be training different things. They're going to be looking for different weaknesses in their opponent now that they've been in the cage with them for almost 25 minutes. So Colby Covington coming out southpaw and fighting the whole fight in the southpaw stance, that might be something that we see differently. We might see him go back to orthodox here, and we were seeing Kamaru switch stances consistently. So maybe he trained for that fight to fight southpaw because he thought it took away some of Kamaru's best weapons, but it didn't necessarily do that because Kamaru's straight right was what landed big time and was causing him trouble. So, yeah, we'll have to see what they do in terms of that. But the grappling, I mean, when you look at these guys' stats, you see that the grappling is their best path to victory. I mean, Colby Covington, 61 takedowns. Kamaru Usman, 49 takedowns. Both these guys are controlling their opponents on average over a massive double-digit fight sample size here for 50% of the fights. And they're being controlled less than 2.5% of the time by their opponents. So they're dominant with their offensive wrestling. They're dominant with their top control. They're getting takedowns at over a 48% clip, both of them. They're both averaging more than 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, although for Colby, it's even higher. 4.61 takedowns per 15 minutes for Colby, 3.27 for Usman. But both these guys control time monsters. 100% takedown defense for Usman, 75% takedown defense for Colby. But even though Colby's been taken down 6 times in 13 fights, he's only been controlled for 2.35% of his UFC career. That's about 4 minutes out of 198. So, I mean, come on. These guys are really dominant in the grappling, but if you really look, it's not surprising that we didn't see it in the first one. Will we see it in the second one? That's the question.
I think it would be a huge mistake. I don't know if you agree with this. I think it'd be a huge mistake if Kamaru Usman went to the wrestling here. I think if I was Kamaru Usman, I'd just keep the same game plan. And if Colby tries to shoot on you, stuff those takedowns, I think that he has the advantage on the feet in terms of the power, especially. So, yeah, if I was Kamaru Usman, I'm not shooting takedowns here.
Let me ask you something. If you were Colby Covington's coach, what change would you want to make in this fight? Like, what would you train in order to find a hole in Kamaru Usman's game plan here? Find some way that you think that if we did this, we could beat this guy.
That is such a tough question. But what I did notice was in their fight was when I saw Colby having success, what he was doing was he was making Kamaru Usman feel uncomfortable. He was kind of pressuring him to a point that it was actually like a really crazy pace he was putting on him. He attempted 111 significant strikes in round 1, 97 in round 2. And what I noticed was whenever he was coming forward, throwing that volume, he would have a lot of success. But whenever he kind of slowed down a little bit, whenever he took his foot off the gas pedal even a little bit, that's when Kamaru Usman was looking the best. He started picking him apart. Like in that third round, he kind of took his foot off the gas a little bit. Usman outlanded him 29-8. Even hurt him in that round as well. But yeah, what I noticed was when Colby was coming forward, throwing volume like crazy, that's when he had success the most. I don't know if I was Colby's coach, I don't know if I'd come in here with the game plan of going for takedowns. I don't think that would work. I think I would, just train the cardio as always. I'd come forward and try to throw volume nonstop and try to make this as close and competitive as possible. But even then, like it seems like that even won't work, Weezy. So that's why it's so tough to pick Colby Covington in this fight.
So here's what I would do. Okay, here's how I would say to Colby, do you think we could do this? Do you think we could get your conditioning to a place where you could wrestle Kamaru really heavily for the first 2 rounds? Whether you do it successfully or not, I don't care. But put him up against that cage, make him stop takedown attempts, get his arms filling up with blood. And if you did that, could you box then for 3 rounds? Then just completely take your foot off of the wrestling game plan and say, we need to make sure that your conditioning is the best it's ever been. And if you give me 2 hard rounds of wrestling against Kamaru, could you give me 3 rounds where you put a pace on him with your striking? I think that's the only way. And I don't know if there's a human being alive that can push that pace. But if there's one guy that could fit that bill, it's probably Colby Covington.
That's true. And like even like we've seen like a lot of those rounds in the fight were really close. Like one judge even had Colby Covington up 3-1 going into the fifth. Like, why not, if you're Colby Covington, it's a close round, why not try to mix in a takedown and seal off the round? Why not try to push Usman up against the cage for 10, 15, 20 seconds, try to seal off a very close round? That could be a path there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe wrestle the last 45 seconds of each of the first 3 or 4 rounds, and just try to steal rounds at the end of it. Use your wrestling in a smart way where you can do, maybe you can shoot 4 or 5 good takedown attempts over 5 rounds and really make them count. But it seems like it's the chess that's going to need to be played on the Colby Covington side in order to bridge the gap of the power and the wrestling of Kamaru Usman is God, it's like you got to be on that Russian, chess master level to play that kind of game with your conditioning, with pushing your conditioning as far as it can go and picking the right times to wrestle and picking the right times to throw a lot of volume and all the time being concerned about the power that's going to be coming back your way from Kamaru. And he's been showing it over and over and over again, and it's terrifying.
It is terrible. Kamaru Usman with power is a scary thing. But let's see what you guys in the chat have to say thus far. See which way you guys are leaning. So Daz saying, kind of just wonder how much better Usman will be this time. Yeah, I mean, this guy is making improvements fight after fight, and they're big improvements as well. He's so surprising, can learn so fast at his age. Yep, last time he surprised me in that jab. Yeah, I 100% agree. Roy saying Usman does more damage from top position. Colby only seems to be interested in maintaining control from a grappling to wear on his opponents. I do agree with that as well.
Yep, I agree with that too.
Yep, we have Jay with the dono. Appreciate you, Jay, for hanging out. $5. Appreciate you a ton. B saying you guys put in some serious work. Really appreciate your efforts. Yeah, this day has been very, very hectic. Lots of work getting done, but we're getting it all done for you guys. So appreciate you hanging out. B, see what else we got here. B saying the value is on Colby, but the bet is probably for the over. Usman is busier. Colby minus the shtick is an amazing fighter. Usman is slightly better. Yeah, I don't think like
all that. Yeah,
I don't think the skill gap is like that wide, and that's what's crazy about this fight.
It's not that wide, but Kamaru is just making these huge improvements in the striking. He looks so good. Him knocking out Masvidal there, and and it's not like, because he could have just wrestled Masvidal if he wanted to. He could have easily won doing that. He just held him up against the cage the first time, but still, he's a way better wrestler than Jorge Masvidal could ever dream to be. And he could have mixed in with his wrestling all that he wanted, but he's, maybe he's falling a little bit in love with his striking. But frankly, if your opponent is Colby Covington, that's fine, because you can outstrike Colby Covington. Out wrestling him, you're going to have to really bring the best conditioning you've ever had in your life, and there's no reason for him to take that route.
Yep, 100% agree. Daz saying what cage will it be? It will be the big cage.
Yes.
The last fight was in the big cage, right?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that was in the big. Colby hasn't fought for a while. So, yeah.
Yep. Let's see what else we got here. We have Usman has been more active. Yeah, good point there. Usman's fought 3 times since they fought against each other, and Colby's fought once against Tyron Woodley.
Yep.
Jeremiah with the dono. Appreciate you, Jeremiah. Thank you for hanging out. Got Chris as well in here saying respect, always grinding. Brady and Unk. Usman all day, better wrestler, harder puncher. I do think he's definitely the harder puncher, but so let's get into the strength of schedule stats, Uncle Weezy. Really curious to hear these ones.
Yeah, so okay. Kamaru Usman, better ratio overall and better total fights overall. So 2.33 win-to-loss ratio of Usman's opponents, while for Covington, it's 2.02. So both of these guys are just fighting the absolute top notch of the competition in the UFC. 13.92 total fights for Covington, 14.29 for Kamaru Usman. So what that translates to is the average Kamaru Usman opponent has a record of 10 wins and 4.29 losses, while the average Colby Covington opponent has 9.31 wins and 4.62 losses. So in the overall, Kamaru Usman definitely has the edge, and he also has the edge in the wins. So It's the same numbers because Kamaru Usman's never lost. So the wins for Colby Covington are over an opponent with an average record of 9.18 wins, 5 losses, 14.18 total fights, almost identical to Kamaru Usman's, but the 1.84 ratio is 0.5 less than the 2.33 ratio of Kamaru Usman's wins. And then the losses for Colby Covington, they've come to only Warley Alves and then obviously Kamaru Usman. So he's losing to a guy with an average win-loss record of 10 and 2.5 with 12.5 total fights. So yeah, got the metrics give the strength of schedule to Kamaru Usman.
MD has a question. Looking at his record, are all Colby's wins, big wins, over guys that are washed up?
I mean,
Woodley, yeah. Woodley,
yeah. Woodley for sure.
Lawler.
And then Robbie Lawler just beat Nick Diaz.
Yeah. There you go.
The washed up Nick Diaz who hasn't fought in 6 years. But, definitely, okay, so look, he's beating guys at the end of their career. But, Damian Maia could be 52. And if he gets one takedown against you, you're going to lose. So it doesn't matter if, Damian Maia, it was a bad matchup for Maia against Usman and Covington because both those guys stopped his takedowns. And because both of these guys are such good defensive wrestlers, Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman both easily handled Damian Maia. It would be the same thing with Dos Anjos, Lawler. These are all guys that Kamaru would have beaten too, But the fact is, look, when these two guys got in the cage the first time, it was close for 4 rounds, for 4 full rounds, 22 minutes. It was almost indistinguishable who was winning. Then Kamaru landed that big shot. And the thing that we didn't see in the stats was how good both these guys are with their wrestling. Because, when guys with 120 combined takedowns over 25 minutes don't shoot one, that's respect. That's respect for your opponent's ability to wrestle. That speaks volumes about what these guys think of the other one's wrestling. Really I guarantee you, both of these guys have egos that would fill up the entire houses that we live in, okay? In terms of their ability to finish fights in the cage and best their opponents. With those gigantic egos, neither one of these guys dared shoot a takedown on the other. How do you like that?
Pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy. And I can't wait to find out, like, is that going to change this fight or is it going to be like this, like the first fight? We don't know.
That's the most intriguing wrinkle that we don't know the answer to. Is Colby going to wrestle? Is Kamaru going to wrestle? Got to wait to find out.
Yes, how exciting. But before we get into these odds and talk some bets, guys, if y'all can please smash that like button. Also, let me know in the chat, what are you guys liking in terms of a bet? But we'll talk about some lines right now. So, yeah, we take a look at the line, Weezy, and Kamaru Usman opened up minus 225. He's now minus 275. Colby Covington opened up plus 190. He's now plus 235. And it's kind of crazy to look at because you take a look at the first fight, and it was close. Like, I believe one judge had it 3-1 Usman. One judge had it 3-1 Colby. And then one judge had it 2-2 going into the fifth. So knowing that, this line probably does seem wide, but what's not factored in is going to be the improvements of Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman, like somebody said in the chat, like he is learning so fast. We're seeing so much improvements, and I do think he's a different fighter from when they fought like 2 years ago. So any thoughts on this line? Do you think it's too wide? Do you think it's too short? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think just on paper, it's too wide, but I still think that, Colby's got to... We need to see a new Colby Chaos Covington here. We need to see a better one. He needs to be better than what he was the first time because Kamaru's better. Kamaru's knocking out Gilbert Burns. Kamaru's knocking out Jorge Masvidal. I mean, that was a highlight reel meme knockout that he did to one of the greatest boxers in this division right now. So, yeah, Colby needs to make these improvements, but we haven't seen them yet. So I see exactly why this line is where it is. All it takes is one result that we have in our minds to push a line. And the the image that's freshest in our head is Colby getting dropped in the 5th round twice.
Yep. What I'll say is, I think it's going to be competitive, but I find it hard seeing Colby Covington get it done. Like you said, he's going to have to make some serious changes. He's not going to come in here and outstrike Kamaru Usman for 25 minutes. Jay saying, can you guys get into some props? Yes, we will. B saying Usman, but it's way too juiced. The over is the only play. Colby for value. Nick saying fight doesn't go to decision for sure. Let's see. Jay saying Usman inside the distance is plus 155. I expected a bit more. B saying is Masvidal nothing more than a better liked Mike Perry. That is disrespectful.
no, he's better than Perry. Come on, man.
Come on.
He's better than that, dude.
That's hilarious. But let's look at some of these props. So we see the over 1.5 rounds is minus 325, juiced under 1.5 rounds plus 265. The under is set at looks like 3.5 rounds. The over 3.5 rounds minus 135. The under 3.5 rounds plus 105. We see the fight goes to decision is minus 120. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 110. I personally think I want to say it goes to decision, but it's going to be sweaty, especially seeing Kamaru Usman as of late. I mean, the power is translating now. Early in his career, it was not. He was a decisionator. Now the power is translating. Colby has been knocked out. He has been knocked down by Kamaru Usman. So I would not be shocked in the slightest if Kamaru Usman did knock him out here. I think if there is a finish, it's going to be on the Usman side. I would be shocked, very shocked, if Colby was the one finishing Kamaru. But I guess one prop that stuck out to me is the over 2.5 rounds. It's sitting at minus 185. I think this fight potentially finishes, but I think if it does finish, I do think it's later in the fight. I do think the damage that Kamaru Usman's going to land, I think it's going to add up as the fight goes on. And I'm kind of thinking like a Kamaru Usman 4th or 5th round knockout win, or a potential decision. So I'm liking that over 2.5. As far as the 3.5, I don't know if I'd go there. Any thoughts on any of the overs? Any thoughts on the fight goes, fight doesn't go?
So first thought is, for a fight that's a 5-round fight where the over 4.5 is only juiced to minus 122, it's kind of odd that, somebody would be minus 300, because for a fight that's definitely going to go to decision over 5 rounds, for somebody that brings the pace and the volume that Colby does, that leads me to believe that there's some value there on Colby. But as far as time props for this one, I think Kamaru is just as likely to knock out Colby with the very first punch of the fight as he is with the very last punch of the fight. When he lands, when he's accurate, he puts you down. And on the other side of that, Brady, one thing that we don't hear talked about enough, in my opinion, about Kamaru is his secret weapon, and that's his chin. The dude's got a chin. He can take a punch. So that's the biggest thing for me, is that what will probably keep me away from the time props is that I think Kamaru is dangerous at any time. And I think that Colby probably isn't with his striking or with his grappling. He's not a finisher. He's probably not finishing Kamaru Usman. I mean, if he dropped Kamaru Usman and knocked him out, can you imagine how shocked everybody would be by that?
I'd be really shocked.
I would be speechless. And I would be like just going nuts in front of my TV too, because that would be just something that I wouldn't be expecting. But yeah, for me, time props, I'm staying away from them because I think I just have that much respect for Usman's striking where it is at this point in his career. I think it's going to be much better than Colby's. Colby's got a tough road to hoe here, man. This is going to be a tough fight for him.
Yeah, I feel that. Vince saying, Brady Mob, what is up, Vince? How you doing? Das saying, fight ends in KO plus 100 if sure of violence. Okay. Something to take a look at there. I believe that's on FanDuel Sportsbook. But let's take a look at some other lines that potentially stick out. I remember there was one we talked about on Stat Diggers that kind of stuck out to me. Although I'm on the Kamaru Usman side, Colby Covington by decision is plus 500.
That's his path. Like I said, I was just saying, I'd be shocked if this guy knocked him out. So if you're on the Colby side, and you really don't see him landing a knockout here. I mean, like, I guess the only way he's really knocking out Kamaru is if he lands a ton of calf kicks or a liver kick, because that doesn't really matter how tough you are. If you can't walk, or if if your liver shuts down the rest of your organs, you're not, you don't stay upright. So, but Kamaru's got that chin. So, I do like the Colby. Yeah, and look, I mean, like, Colby by decision plus 500. Colby inside the distance is like plus 550.
Makes
So
no
I think
sense.
the value there is like, definitely on Colby by decision.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So Covington by decision plus 500, that does stick out to me. I think that's his path to victory. Usman by decision plus 190. I don't think I touched that with how hard this guy's been hitting, like we've been talking about. Covington inside the distance is a plus 565. Usman inside the distance plus 155. We see that Usman by knockout is plus 155. Covington by knockout is plus 700. Somebody mentioned in the chat, Colby by submission plus 1600. Usman by decision plus 1,200. The only way I'd see any of that happening if there's like a club or sub on the Usman side, but I don't think it's likely either way. I don't think anybody's getting subbed in this fight. Colby, yeah, like I said, Colby by KO plus 700. Usman by KO. Any thoughts on the Usman by KO plus 155? That's not terrible.
Yeah, if you're talking about plus 155, you're looking at about a 62% implied, or I'm sorry, a 38% implied probability, but you're looking at a 75% implied probability for the win. So that gives you a nice, almost a 40%, move there in terms of how much less has to happen. And that's not bad because he's knocked him out before. And like I say, this isn't the same Usman that fought Colby the first time. This guy's striking is even better now. And then you've had Colby, now no longer an American Top Team. Now he's training over at Colby Covington Incorporated, otherwise known as MMA Masters. And he's been bragging when you listen to him interviewing about what the jiu-jitsu coach over there is doing for him, about how he's getting 10 times more personal attention, and that he's making all kinds of improvements. So, we're going to have to wait to see whether, what he says, comes to fruition in the cage, because we know that Kamaru's been improving since the first time they fought. But yeah, I don't know if I want to pick whether Usman gets this done inside the distance or not. If I'm on the Usman side, I might just want to say, like, I think he's better everywhere and, lay the minus 300. But it's a big price to pay, especially when they were, close for 22 minutes. This is so hard, dude. This is so hard.
It's easy, but it's hard, right?
Yeah.
I think it's such
an easy fight to pick, but it looks like the books are getting it right.
Yeah.
Because when the books are getting it right, you're sitting there waffling on both sides, and you can see it, and that's when you know that, boy, they really they honed it in. So
yeah, man, it's a good fight. I cannot wait for. Somebody in the chat brought up that they hate each other. They do. They hate each other. So just another reason for potential violence bet, maybe. But the only thing with the violence bet I don't like is I think only one guy can contribute to that, and that's Usman. So if I do like violence, I might as well just bet the Usman got by KO plus 155 rather than laying minus 300 on him, which I actually don't mind that. I actually don't mind Usman by KO.
Yeah, and if Colby did make those Brazilian jiu-jitsu improvements that he's been talking about, Colby Covington by submission, you want to be the coolest guy at your party, plus 1,600. Can you imagine if you hit that bit? You would be such a stud. I called Colby Covington by submission against Kamaru Usman. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't even seem like it's close to being juiced enough. You'd have to get me like plus 3,500 to even get close to interested in betting Colby Covington by submission in this fight.
Yeah, just no point. I mean, anything can happen, but just probably no point there. But yeah, man, I think we broke it down pretty good. Thanks everybody for hanging out on the chat. If you all can smash the like button, we're gonna give our final thoughts and then head out of here. So my final thoughts on the fight is, first of all, this fight is going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to it. My most anticipated fight as soon as it was announced. I've had it circled on my calendar. I'm a big fan of both these guys, and it should be an absolute war. Both these guys hate each other. I cannot wait for the press conference. I cannot wait for the stare down, them just being next to each other. It's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun. But as far as the fight goes, Yeah, I think Usman's a big favorite. I think he is the rightful favorite. Obviously, he won in the last fight. It was close, but he did knock out Colby Covington. And then on top of that, he's been the more active fighter after they last fought. On top of that, we're seeing massive improvements from Kamaru Usman. I think we're going to see the best version of Kamaru Usman as well, and maybe the same of Colby Covington as well. But I think Usman's made massive improvements since their last fight, which is a scary thing, a very scary thing. I see the fight, I don't know, like we talked about it. Could somebody come in here and go for takedowns? Will Colby go for takedowns? I don't know. Will Usman go for takedowns? I don't know. But what I know is Usman has a very good takedown defense. And in terms of the striking, I think it's going to be very competitive, but I think the power is going to be the difference. I think the big thing is the power. One guy has power and one guy doesn't. And Usman has that really good power, that much improved striking. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Usman did finish Colby Covington. I'm personally predicting, I think, like a 4th round finish for Kamaru Usman there to knock out Colby Covington. A decision wouldn't shock me, but I think Kamaru Usman does catch him at some point in this fight. I mean, again, knocking out Jorge Masvidal, that is not an easy thing to do. This guy's power is legit, and he's going to get opportunities. So yeah, give me Kamaru Usman to win. Give me Usman by knockout. The props I'm looking at, I don't mind the over 2.5. I do think it gets extended. I don't mind Usman by KO plus 155. And I don't mind Colby by decision if you're on the Colby side, plus 500. I think that's his path to victory. So, Uncle Weezy, what are your final thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, the thoughts are I need to see a Colby Covington that I've never seen before in order to back him to win this fight. I'm going to be picking Kamaru Usman to win this fight. I am pretty confident that he's going to be fairly dominant in this particular iteration of this fight. But I am hoping to see some wrestling. I'm hoping to see maybe some stance switching here from Colby, and some new wrinkles to that game. If I was backing Colby, I would definitely be backing him by decision. Those plus 500 on FanDuel right now, I think, is a really good look if you're on the Covington side. But I'm really having a hard time identifying whether it's best just to lay the juice at minus 300 here if you're on the Usman side, or if you want to try to pick him inside the distance or by decision. Because, right now the books are telling you that it's about 50-50 that it goes over 4.5 rounds. So I think I would just play it safe and just bet the Kamaru Usman money line. And I think I'm probably going to throw 3 units on it to win 1. Because I'm feeling pretty confident that Kamaru Usman has what it takes to win the second matchup.
Nice, yeah, I don't hate that at all. Luke saying Usman money line hedge with Colby decision, free money. Nothing's free money, but I don't hate that look.
Yeah, yeah. And then you just got to say, please, Colby, don't knock him out or submit him. And you probably feel pretty safe that that's not going to happen. But you just never know. It's a fight. We don't know what's going through Kamaru's head. We don't know what's going through Colby's head. We don't know the health. There's a lot of things going on in these guys' lives, but what we have seen is what we and their prior fights in the UFC. There's a lot of good information to go on. We got a lot of stats here for you guys. I'm picking Kamaru. Brady's picking Kamaru. I hope we all make some money off this fight. That's really what's most important at the end of the day.
Yeah, most importantly, make some money. Second, most importantly, let's enjoy the fight. Let's sit back and enjoy this one. This one's gonna be good. B with the dono, $1. Appreciate you, B, for hanging out as always. So Uncle Weezy, let them know where they can find you and what you have going on throughout the week. Me and Uncle Weezy just got done with Stat Diggers a couple hours ago. Go check that out if you have not yet. We do basically this summarized up a little bit, but for every single fight. It's a great show, and it was a pretty fun show. I thought it was had a lot of funny moments in it as well.
we had fun this week, man, and there's a lot of great fights on this card. I mean, so you got to go check out Stat Diggers for all 14 fights, but you can check me out on Twitter at MMA Weezy, and you can check me out on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. I do balls deep breakdowns of fights, and I will be doing my UFC 268 full card breakdown Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. Check that one out. And then I'll be going live 6 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday with Brady, with AJ, and with Luke for the DraftKings show. Looking forward to that one as well. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on a Sunday night. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks for having me, Brady. Appreciate it.
Always nice having you on, Wheezy. Thank you all for hanging out. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown prediction video will be posted within the next couple hours, probably set it for like 6 o'clock in the morning. Thank you all for your support. As always, Luke with the dono on the way out, $6.99. Appreciate you, Luke, for hanging out. Luke. Appreciate the dono. And he says Usman by KO. That's kind of what I'm thinking as well. I think that's kind of where Uncle Wheezy's thinking as well. But again, thank you all so much. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. Leave a like on the way out. We'll talk to you very soon. Good luck for this main event and good luck for 268. See you guys.